podcast.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
All right, we're golden. All right, everybody. I think we're on episode 9 or 10. It'll be on the bottom there. Today we have a Freddy Beach podcast, David Shipley. Thank you for being here.
Happy to be here.
And I'm gonna get Phil to intro the main man because I feel like I'm not going to do it justice.
How about I do what I know, because I don't know a whole lot. I know that David Shipley...
About David or life?
Just in general.
Okay, all right.
But I know that David Shipley's a big deal. I know he's gone through the Energy TME Accelerator. He had a big announcement last week, which I'm sure he'll tell us all about. Or this week, maybe. I don't even know. No. And his buddy stayed at my house in Airbnb the other day. So that's kind of fun.
Okay.
It's a small world in Fredericton.
All right. Yeah, I heard about you really recently reading the announcement, and I don't want to butcher the details because I read all the announcements and stuff.
Yep.
Probably infused with each other. But can you tell the folks a little bit more about it?
Sure. It's kind of the debutante party for the company. So we have secured over $500,000 in private equity funding, which was fantastic.
Absolutely, congratulations.
And we've got some really amazing investors in our company. So it's not just, and you guys well know this, it's not just about getting checks when you get investors. These are people who are now part of your team and the family. And so, picking the right folks, making sure you're a good fit for both sides is really important for expectation management. And we have an all-star group that's supporting us, and including East Valley Ventures, Mariner Partners, NBIF, and a number of other folks who've been involved in the startup scene here in New Brunswick. So I feel very pumped that we were able to get the group we have, which was huge. And on top of that, we were proud to announce, we were kind of holding our cards tight that we secured the city of Fredericton as a customer for a platform. And
good for you guys.
Which is awesome. We have 11 customers, paying customers for our technology. We haven't even fully released it, and we had demand to start taking advantage. Sure.
And the name of the company, please.
So let's start with the name of the company.
It's hard to pronounce just from reading it, which is why we had a discussion beforehand. We didn't want to butcher it.
So the company is called Beauceron, and so it is named after a sheepdog from northern France. Now, why would you name a cybersecurity high-tech company after a sheepdog from northern France? Well, German Shepherd didn't sound good as a name.
Yeah.
But the philosophy here is actually really simple. When you look at cybersecurity, when you look at cybercrime, it's actually not about the technology. It's about people, process, culture, and technology all together. When you see the big global epidemic that's happening, not petya, they haven't decided what they're going to call it, want to cry, don't want to cry, etc. This is about people, process, and culture. For example, most ransomware, malware gets on from opening a phishing email.
So what is that, just for the people who have no idea?
Phishing emails look like they are invoices that you weren't expecting from someone you don't know, that you clicked and opened and said, what's this now? And now I've infected or owned your Windows computer if you haven't kept antivirus installed, patched your stuff, and opened an invoice from someone you didn't know and weren't expecting. So this is about humans' interaction with technology. And in fact, we pause for a second when we look at the word cyber. A lot of people say, well, that came from 1980s, the book Neuromancer by William Gibson and the whole cyberspace. Yeah. But actually, Gibson got it from a hilarious mathematician and philosopher from MIT by the name of Norbert Wiener. Okay. And his view was cybernetics is the matching of the animal and the machine together, the science of the animal and the machine. It was never about technology itself.
Right.
And so
it wasn't in isolation.
It wasn't in isolation. In fact, the word itself came from the Greek word for steersman, the person steering the ship. Right? So when we go and we trace that history back, it's about people. Now, if we look at criminals, the easiest way to hack any organization is to send a phishing email. 1 in 10 people in any company that doesn't do training at a minimum will open any phishing campaign. And all it takes is one to get in.
So do you have to just open your email, or do you have to kind of action what the email says? And I know that's an ignorant question, but
no, it's actually a really good question.
I don't want to get phished.
So depending on the phishing email and the technology, so let's back up. On a Windows computer, usually it's going to be a Word document, etc., and you open that up, and particularly it'll sometimes ask you to run a macro. Look, nobody uses macros unless you're in like high accounting or running some crazy numbers. You shouldn't be running macros. But
especially you get an email from a guy you don't know.
Exactly. So
David, I need you to just run a macro for me quick.
Yeah. Sure.
No problem, Jeff.
Yeah, the 1990s called. So that's one way. The other way, of course, is just clicking on a link in an email may open your web browser. Now, if you haven't patched your web browser, your OS, or all those fun things like Adobe Flash or Microsoft Silverlight, your machine is vulnerable. And you'll hit this web page. In fact, a New Brunswick organization associated with a particular sport, I won't name and shame, but they had their website hacked, and it was a very brilliant Russian crew that was working it. And if you went to their website when it was hacked, it would look for what operating system you're running, what vulnerable plugins you had, and try to serve you the right malware to try and infect you. And away you go. So even clicking on a link can affect you. Now, a lot of people will sit there and go, I've got an iPhone, Dave. I'm a Mac user. I'm safe. First
That's
of all,
where my head was kind of going.
don't think you're safe.
Head in the sand.
So
good to go.
if you want to sort of lose that sense of Mac self-righteous security, take a look at what WikiLeaks has for the CIA dump on all the different pieces of malware the CIA has developed for Macs. Why? Because high-profile targets with lots of money. What a surprise. The CIA would want to hack them. Now those tools have gone mainstream. So they've effectively lowered the cost of entry for criminals into the Mac space. So watch out for some hilarious bad news on the Mac side over the next 6 months. Now, iOS, for example, a lot of people think, okay, it's an iPhone, it's secure. Well, in the iOS 10.31 update, there were 19 patches alone for what's known as remote code execution. Now, that's big, scary geek talk for click on the link and I owned your phone. So that's the ability of me to remotely execute code on your device. So not patching your iPhone when those updates come out, really bad idea. Generally, when the updates are out, it's already too late. Okay. That's where this word, you hear the word often come out, and you hear security guys talk about this, they suck in the breath, and they're zero-day malware. All zero-day malware is that someone found a hack, started criminalizing it or using it before the companies responsible for the technology is victimized, before they're ahead of it. And that happens all the time.
Dude, you are killing this podcast. I just don't want to put any pressure on you, but this is awesome.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
So tell me about, so I have Windows Phone, Windows Computer, or Mac. So what are some steps that I could do to be like, okay, am I infected? How do I check it out? What's the basics?
The basics, okay. So turning on automatic updates whenever and where possible on your operating system, your applications, etc. Good idea. So as soon as those patches are coming, get them rolling onto your device. For example, this whole WannaCry thing. Let's just explain how this all played out and how you could protect yourself.
I don't have a clue what you're talking about.
So WannaCry was the big malware infection that happened in May, June that swept over the world. That was the result of, now this is going to sound very James Bond, so I'm going to rewind the clock.
Good.
Okay? So about 5 years ago, the NSA, the National Security Agency in the United States, discovered a really awesome vulnerability in Microsoft Windows. And it had to do with a network sharing protocol known as Sender Message Block, or SMB. And so this was kind of picture it like a golden key into any Windows computer in the world. And they hacked the planet. This was a godsend for them. Unfortunately for them, one of their contractors, worked for the same company as Edward Snowden, decided to keep a backup copy of all their greatest hits of hacking tools and took it home. Now, the Russians, who know who a lot of these contractors are, had owned his home network, stole these tools, and they got a treasure trove. So this Russian group, the Shadow Brokers, which is affiliated or a front for the Russian government, has been taunting since January the U.S. government. We got your tools. We know who you've been hacking. We're going to slowly release these. And so they were having some fun with this, particularly after Trump was elected and the whole Russia-Trump thing. And so they've been leaking this stuff out, and they warned the world in February about this SMB vulnerability. And behind the scenes, U.S. government officials, Homeland Security, when I was at UNB, we were getting lots of alerts. Be worried about this particular SMB protocol. Stop using it. Change what you're doing. Something bad is coming. The NSA went to Microsoft in February and said, we've had this for 5 years, didn't tell you about it, you really need to patch this. And Microsoft had to scramble. So they canceled their big Patch Tuesday, had to push that to March and push the patch out. Now, if the world was responsible about patching, WannaCry wouldn't happen. Right. But it's not. And so a vulnerability that was patched in March was exploited in June. And it caused havoc all over the place. 65 hospitals in the UK went down because of this malware in June. Now with this most recent thing, Petya used the same vulnerability called Eternal Blue. The code names are hilarious.
Yeah, I like that.
And used the same thing and hit global firms all over the place. Why? Because they still hadn't patched. What
this
happened?
is where the people and the culture thing.
People and the culture and the process, right?
Yeah.
This is where it's a management business issue, not an IT issue. The IT folks will tell you we need time to patch our systems.
Right.
The business folks will tell you I am too busy running our operations. We can't afford any downtime. They look at IT as a cost center, not as a strategic part of their business, right? So what Beauceron is trying to do is help move the conversation about security. That's the IT guy's problem to that's the CEO's problem, the CFO's problem, the COO's problem, and the CIO's problem, as well as at the top and at the bottom, the end user. Because here's the thing. This has been my experience when I was at UNB. I had a fantastic time at UNB, which is why we did the launch there, and I'm so grateful to it. Yeah. I had a chance to run a security program for UNB, and they gave me permission to phish our own employees, so simulated attacks. So I got to be the
live
bad guy.
exercise.
Live exercise.
Amazing.
It was the best on ever, right?
How many guys did you get?
Well, so interesting enough, I started with a target of I got to get at least 1 in 10. My best phish got 34%.
Wow.
And here's the thing: 50% of the people that fell victim to that phish did so in the first 60 minutes. In the first few minutes of the phish, in a simulated sense, I had access to all the records.
So if I open an email and I run this macro, you can now access remotely my computer?
Theoretically. But what we did was we simulated it. So the point of once you clicked, we assumed that as being a success factor.
I feel like if it was that easy, though, I would be getting hacked into a lot more often.
How do you know you're not?
Well,
yeah, Phil.
All my money.
For now.
Yeah.
As soon as you up your daily transaction limits, they're coming for you. No, but in all seriousness, but what we were able to do is we were able to start teaching people, and we lowered our phishing response rate to 5% from 34. Now, where that was critical is if we look at last summer, the University of Calgary gets hit with ransomware, and all of a sudden our monthly emails to UNB that were 149,000 a month with malware attached to them, 149,000 rolls of the dice, let's see what happens. It goes to 1.79 million. Now you'd say, well, wait a second, Dave, you've got anti-spam, anti-phishing technology. Well, even the best of that stuff is 97, 99% accurate. 97, 99% of 149,000 is one number of probability. Right. 97 to 99%, or flipping it around, 3% of 1.79 million still getting through is a bad story. Yet we did not have a huge uptick in incidents because we had turned our people from the biggest source of vulnerability into our biggest asset. We now have people flooding our help desk with every phishing campaign that was hitting us. Right. And in 4 times, they were reporting phishing campaigns before automated systems caught on. These were real attacks. Because humans are still smarter than machines. And so we turned the flock into the sheepdogs. And so the idea for the company was born from the experience, right? This idea that everybody could be on the security team.
So is your product then like a performance, like almost an education tool?
It's really interesting. It is in the same way that Salesforce.com is a technology that enables a series of business processes, insights, and actions inside an organization. Picture that was what Beauceron does in a security context. So for the end user, yes, we provide security awareness education. We provide surveys to understand what their attitudes and perceptions on security is. We phish them to see how they do. And we have other really cool simulated attacks like USB key drops and text messages coming out. So we're going to get even more devious as the year goes on.
The text messages, they trick my parents. I'm like, don't answer them. Jesus, don't trick it.
Yeah. So and now with a lot of people using second factor authentication, which is awesome, but they don't know the difference between a real 2FA message and a fake one. That's a problem, right? And so that's what we do at the user level. But we also help the organization understand its business process risks, as well as its technology maturity, and the gaps it has between its leadership's perception of cyber risk, its IT's perception, and the on-the-ground reality. So we pull it all together with a really easy-to-use dashboard that even a non-technical CEO can look at and go, in fact, this is one of our customers' comments, this is drop-dead simple. Yeah. So we took a business risk, and now he can manage that business risk with all the other business risks, which you guys are more than familiar with. Do I take this opportunity or not? Do we invest in this area or not? And now cyber can be one of those things.
Yeah, no, he can make good decisions based off of actually knowing the factor.
Right.
So let me ask you this. Were you at CyberSmart here a few weeks ago?
I was.
wasn't that awesome?
It was very encouraging. I think there's a lot of opportunities for New Brunswick to develop skills and talent in a variety of areas. I don't think we're going to close the human capital gap with humans. You don't close a 1 million worker shortage
With 1 million folks.
With 1 million folks,
Yeah.
and not in the pressure that's on the world right now to secure.
Let's jump in there just for 1 sec.
Yep.
Somebody very high up at a co-op had a conversation with, and they said that 1/3 of their money right now is for innovation. Because what's happening in Atlantic Canada specifically is we have so few people that we're forced to innovate to get work done.
Yep.
So I thought that was like a very interesting insight, that we're actually fairly innovative here because we just don't have anyone to do the work.
Well, in fact, working smarter, not harder, is the mother of all inventions, right? I mean, the guy who invented the wheel was like, I want to keep hauling this on my back.
Right.
You know, it's like, put this on this and start moving this. I could do 2 people's work, right? And so this is where this whole context of robotics and AI and all that, this is just a natural progression of technology. Now, when it comes to cybersecurity, however, we are, as a society, at a tipping point. And this is not new for us with new technology.
That's a question that I have to...
Yeah.
Oh, he'll tell us.
Go.
I can tell.
So, are you familiar with the movie Jurassic Park?
Yeah.
The original one, right? So you know, we're all in the pre-millennial generation, right? I heard a new term that describes we're not quite full Gen X. Anyone born between 1977 and 1983 is this Xennial, apparently. We're a micro generation. I'll buy into that. We get to grow up with an analog childhood, so we don't have this giant liability of social media now that we're adults. But we get to dive into the digital technology.
Really hit the wave at the right time.
Yeah. So the sweet spot in generations. But
agreed.
Our Jurassic Park was awesome, but there's a critical. In fact, Jurassic Park is the perfect analogy for cybersecurity. Okay, it's this modern, complex world where science has run far ahead of anyone's understanding. Yeah. They have one dude running the IT shop, so dramatic underinvestment in IT.
Yeah, totally.
And dramatic underinvestment in the risk they're running of what happens when their very complex IT system fails.
Yeah.
We live in Jurassic Park.
Yeah.
And in fact, when you see Ian Malcolm, lying on the table after the T-Rex takes a little nip out of him, and he's going to John Hammond, you know, you were so busy asking, just because you could do it, should you do it?
Right.
Right? They just wanted to know how to do it. So let me give you an example. Have you heard of the 2015 Jeep Cherokee hack?
I have a Jeep that I have to take back. I got recalled. Yeah.
Okay.
I have not.
So this is a great story. So in 2015, Wired magazine filmed one of their reporters driving a Jeep Cherokee on the highway while remotely over the internet. 2 very well-known security hackers came over the internet, took control of the car's systems, and was able to, first annoying. They turned the stereo up, air conditioning cranked, sprayed some spray. Then they killed the transmission. They could have also taken control of the steering and killed the brakes.
Right.
Now, he was scared enough. The reporter was pretty terrified driving on the freeway, going through this experience.
It's loss of control.
Right.
Yeah.
Hundreds of thousands of these vehicles had that vulnerability. Mm-hmm. Now, how does this relate to Jurassic Park? Well, they were so busy figuring out the business advantages of layering technology in over that 15-year period between 2000 and 2015, they never stopped to say, is it safe? Let me give you that example. So in the early 2000s, Ford, GM, and Chrysler, they're in a pinch. If they build the same car as Nissan, Mazda, you name the newer automaker, they have to charge $2,000 more because of legacy costs of their business, pensions, healthcare plans, etc. Bolt for bolt. He bought the same Toyota Corolla, but it had a GM badge. So a Ford executive realized 2 things. One, millennials love their tech, and we want to attract millennials to our cars, and tech is dirt cheap to put in, but commands a price premium. So they said, Bluetooth and touchscreens. $15 on the market, $20 to install. Fantastic.
Yeah.
And $1,000 price premium. Yeah. Now later, someone says, hey, what if we add a new feature to the car? We can charge $500 more. When your car is in an accident, it knows because the stereo is plugged into the car system. It can turn down your stereo and call 911. Fantastic. Charge more money. People are going to love that. This is great. Then a couple of years later, not too long ago, millennials are starting to have kids. Kids won't shut up in the back of the vehicle. Let's put internet in the car so they can stream their Netflix. Oh, by the way, we can plug the internet into the entertainment system and the control system. Now my car, which I drive a GM, emails me to nag me about oil changes. No regulations, by the way, from the government on any of this stuff, on securing this. So we now have perfectly hackable cars drive around every day with zero government regulations, with car companies that don't realize they're now technology companies, and hackers not really going after this because there's no money in it yet, but there will be.
Right.
Now, one of my favorite cases of this was a security researcher showed if you infect the diagnostic machine inside a dealership, you could then use it to distribute ransomware to the cars. And so you could literally feel like you're held hostage by your mechanic and by Vlad in St. Petersburg when you have to pay to have your car unencrypted. Wait 5 years, it's coming.
I'd like to meet Vlad.
Vlad's made a lot of money.
You know when like the zombie thing, everyone was like the whole zombie fad thing was going for a good time, 5 maybe a bit more years. And I remember always saying it's like it's going to be robot wars way before it's any zombie crisis. And like you saying it there, I don't know. I'm a military guy, right? Like I'm thinking like don't worry about the money. Like at some point, Russian generals are like, you cyber warfare team, all these American Canadian civilians, lock them in their cars, drive them over a cliff, right? Like that's the attack. Why are we worried about the front line? Could it go that way?
So it's really interesting. So I'm ex
like nation state as opposed to individual terrorism or hacking.
Oh, make no mistake, nation state is where it's all at. So let's talk about cyber war for a second. So by the way, full disclosure, I'm ex-Canadian.
the White House these days. Can you talk to me about that? Like, how? So I'll tell you what. I'm so stuck in the news. Trump is getting through me.
Yep.
He's winning, okay? Because I'm like, I don't trust anything.
Well,
That's why we're doing this, because we got to talk to good people.
Actually, there's a small group of startup companies in Russia that are in St. Petersburg that are running Twitter bot farms that are really winning this. They've been around for a couple of years. They're fantastic from a cyber war perspective because they can be Jane voting Republican in the U.S. presidential election and Jim voting in France's Le Pen. Yeah, they're not, but they're working it hard, and so they're accelerating. They're the gasoline on the media fire that was already burning. And I can say that because I used to be a reporter. It's a lot of used to be's in my life.
But right? I want to trust the media. Like I want to have people I can trust, because then if I don't, then I'll always be lied to.
Because at least then we'll feel secure.
Yeah. Well, it's just like.
But the problem is the media got addicted to entertainment news.
It's a terrible thing,
right? And so Trump is the culmination of what happens when you go from the Cronkite era of hard news journalism to the marshmallow entertainment Kardashian news. You get President Kardashian, and well, that's what we're going to see.
It's the first time a popular person has been president.
Oh no, FDR was way more popular.
But was he popular before he got in?
Oh, well, I mean, he was popular as president, but becoming president was a lot more respectable back then.
Yeah, it wasn't idiocracy.
And it wasn't. It wasn't the America of today either. Like America was like just coming into its own.
Well, I mean, it's interesting. Like I read Alex de Tocqueville back in the day in university, right? To hear him talk about America, it's not that different today than it was then. There's still those core fundamental values are there, but it's buried under this superficial layer that technology has sped up. That's kind of concerning. But this is where we get back to cybersecurity in terms of people, process, and culture, right? We sometimes think of technology as that cute little box, and we don't think about that symbiotic relationship, right? The animal and the machine. We influence the technology influences us. And so when we're talking about Beauceron, we're really we're running differently than the rest of the cybersecurity crowd. You'll notice a lot of dog analogies with me. I can't help myself. I have a greyhound.
I love it. Keep it up.
It just happens.
You're making complex things simple, and that's a good thing. Keep it up.
I appreciate that. And the reason is this. Why is it that 2 years ago, 2015, we spent $75 billion on cybersecurity tools, technologies, etc., globally? And we lost $400 billion. Okay, spend 75, lost 400. All right, we doubled down. We're going to spend $150 billion by 2020, and our losses are expected to be at least $2.1 trillion. So double spending, quintuple losses. What other business line, gentlemen, as you as executives, would you tolerate that kind of thing? And yet in cybersecurity, this is the accepted status quo.
I'm having an issue with it too, because I'm like,
because you like math.
Well, I'm just dealing with it. I'm like, should it be less if it saves me more? Like that's kind of, I don't know. It's weird. I know what you mean. My question though is, so just to jump into one thing, I want to ask this because now I'm excited because I've been looking.
We got to get back to what he was saying though.
So
because he was talking about the difference between his way of thinking and sort of the industry. I'll say
so we're looking at we're spending more and we're losing more.
Right.
Which should not be happening. Why is that? Because fundamentally most cybersecurity companies and are founded by mathematicians, computer scientists, etc. These are systems thinkers. This is where the internet has been for the last 50 years. Norbert Weiner and others were holistic thinkers like me. Systems thinkers actually took over and founded Silicon Valley. And system thinkers think that, okay, users are stupid, can't fix stupid, we need a better firewall. Users are stupid, we need a better anti-spam, anti-phishing, anti-social engineering tool. We need a better technology.
Yeah. An isolationist theory.
There's that, right? So when they think about, these boxes can solve the problem, but if the boxes are the source of the problem, adding more boxes doesn't solve them. It's the people, right? The people are what's going to change us. And until such time as boxes can outthink people, and thankfully that hasn't happened yet, criminals will always outthink all of these defensive measures. And they actually don't even have to work nearly as hard as we think they do. So for us, it's about going back to the simpler basics and saying, okay, well, how do you take risk and put it into something that an executive can understand? So we actually have metrics for people, process, culture, and technology. And we tell you, this is your score. You're 25% on technology. Well, geez, we're spending this much money. Well, sorry, this is where you're at. Now, these are the things you need to start thinking about. Culture-wise, 50% of your employees don't think you're a target. Well, let me tell you, you're a target. So let's work on that.
Totally.
People-wise, it's been a year and only 12% of your employees have taken any kind of cybersecurity awareness education. And yet, study after study shows that even 30 minutes of education dramatically reduces your risk. Let's fix that.
I feel like you're teaching people to lock their car doors, like, not to oversimplify it,
Yep.
right? But it's like, yeah, we don't need a sweeter car. That will just get stolen fast. We need the guy to learn how to go like beep, beep, beep. A little, like a few things like that.
Actually, your analogy is really apt because I've talked about, imagine that if we went back to the dawn of the automobile, but instead of Model Ts, we gave everybody Lamborghinis. No traffic signs, no traffic cops, no highway speeds, no sense of how to drive these things. No rules, no regulations. The carnage that you would have on the roads, akin to driving Fredericton's Roundabout on a Friday afternoon. But the point being, the technology, we gave everybody Lamborghinis and we didn't teach them how to drive.
So we have a surprisingly large amount of business people that watch this. So how would you tell, because if you're in business now, you're in technology.
Yes.
How would you tell them to get started? How would they reach out to you? What would they do?
Steps going forward. Yeah.
Well, the easiest thing to do is have a conversation with us, right? Is this the right technology for you guys to help? One of the things is it's not expensive. And so we deliver a great deal of value that helps you really understand where you're at. And then where our partners are really excited, Bulletproof, Mariner, and Acron specializing in the healthcare space, is that they're able now to work with their clients, particularly small and medium-sized businesses, and say, okay, this is your health check. But 30 days after we start running Beauceron in, their people have now been trained, their executives have been surveyed, we understand their gaps. They can start working on stuff and reducing their risk immediately. My big message is this is not a problem you have to keep pushing off. You don't have to solve. If we look at technology as a T-ledger, you've only been looking at the asset side of technology as enabling your business, as key to we're all in technology, like you say. But in that ledger, there's always a liability column.
Right.
And you have to start dealing with that. Or you're going to have those bad days. I remember helping a company in Western Canada, and their CEO, lovely company, technology company, small, 25 people, they've been hit with ransomware. And the attackers were patient. They went and they got their daily backups. And this was a company that the daily information was relevant to. So now they had to potentially look at rolling back to the monthlies. And I was able to hook them up with some folks in the Canadian Cyber Incident Response Center and others. And they were able to get their data back by one way or another and recover. But what that CEO learned, and you could hear it in the voice, the desperation. They built a successful company, and now they got to deal with this kid in Russia who's holding their whole life and future for
So one, I have a technology clothing company that I've been calling a technology clothing company even before I had a website, because I inherently understand that you are the technology anything business in today's world, but don't know how to secure myself up. We're gonna have a talk, actually. And I do liken it to like any military operation. What's the first thing you do? Secure the perimeter.
Yep.
Every single time. You secure and then you act, as opposed to the business world where you act and hope security is not going to be a problem.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's
Yep.
like everything you do. It's like, okay, like, should we give this person first aid? Well, no, because they're shooting at us. We should shoot them, then administer the first aid, right? Like, security is always your number one thing. So because I do understand that importance, we're having this talk. Number two, we're going to have to wrap up the podcast now. We're kind of getting about that time. Which is unfortunate because I think
great.
Yeah, we're gonna have to bring you on again. We could extract a lot of data out of you, here, right?
free consulting value here.
Yeah, totally.
Great value for your listeners.
You talk a lot about what you're up to and what you're doing and blah blah blah, and it's all amazing stuff. I know you're a humble guy, obviously being a former tanker and all that kind of stuff. So you got those values. Give the folks some piece of. You've obviously been very successful. You give the folks a piece of wisdom or something that's helped you along the way that they could take with them.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Two things on the security side, because I always like to leave people something they can do is whenever you have Facebook, social media, banking, whatever, if you can do two-factor authentication, turn that on yesterday.
Yeah.
That will save you so much grief. That's where it requires you to have not just a username and password, but something else on you, like your phone, etc. That's massive. That cuts down 90% of the foolishness right now. Unless someone's really giving you the gears, you're going to cut that down. So that's.
And these guys, they're like hotel thieves, right? They're going to be like, that door's locked, that door's locked, that door's open. Exactly. So why would they go to two-factor?
Exactly.
I'm doing two-factor on my banking. I'm good, brother.
So good, perfect.
I'm with you.
And I think the other part for businesses is just to really truly understand that cybercrime is a business now itself, right? I can go online to the right dark website. I can get online support. I get a money back guarantee. It costs me $50. I get custom malware. I can go after your company, and I've got a chat line I can talk to them about. It's really low cost. It's not high tech to get into going after any business I want. So all businesses, mom, pops, etc., are just part of the target landscape now. So that's just the reality you live in now. On the personal side, the biggest thing that I've learned is find the right people and surround yourself with them, because no one does this alone. I found the right group of people who would follow and work with me and lead me, and we created something. And I think that's the big thing, is that there's sometimes the myth of the entrepreneur, the CEO, and all that fun stuff. And the reality is, I said this at my launch announcements on Monday, it takes a community to launch a company. Mm-hmm. And what's great about Fredericton is that it's a great community.
It's a great community, yeah.
Right? And so you've got the right mix of capital, people capital, opportunity, right. Interest, and I think that spark, right? That need.
And there's a culture here too.
The culture.
The culture is so important.
We want it here, right? We're hungry, and I think that serves us well. So for me, it's about finding the right people when you see an opportunity, and also. I owe one of my greatest thanks was one of the successful entrepreneurs in the IT space in Atlantic Canada. I was in the 21 Inc. Top 40 leaders program 2 years ago, and we're sitting in the.
Awesome.
Yeah, they were fantastic people. I felt like I didn't belong there because there was some.
But everyone probably did.
Yeah. So, but here's this person, and he was amazing. We're sitting around this intimate dinner, and I was saying, okay, look, I got this great job at UNB, which I love. They've been so good to me, and I make good money, and by Atlantic Canadian standards, I've kind of made it.
I've
arrived. And here I am talking about starting a company, going out, potentially losing my job, etc. And he kind of gave me kind of a mental tap in the head and said, look, do you think you're going to end up working at McDonald's after this doesn't go through? Like, look at your skill set, your experiences, and what you'll gain from this. And nothing ventured, nothing gained. And I think that's the biggest thing.
All the time.
I think the other thing is that we have to embrace the concept of failure. Right? In Atlantic Canada, it's really weird. It's like, oh my God, you failed at this. Opportunities to learn. I tried to be an officer in the Canadian Forces. Didn't work out for me. Variety of reasons. But the lessons I learned from that failure.
I find that very surprising by the way you speak. I feel like you'd be a good one.
The other thing, too, is I don't think people appreciate the struggle. Like, the struggle is what makes people great. If you don't do hard things and fail, and if everything's easy, you're going to be a terrible person.
Absolutely. And so the things that I have struggled with, like a couple of years ago, I tried to get involved with local politics and bring local governance to an unincorporated area. Did not go well. It came at an extreme personal cost for my family. I took it really hard. I don't like to lose.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. So, but it taught me a lot. It taught me about the need to be a lot more humble, and also to realize that you don't know it all, and that sometimes people aren't ready for certain things. Yeah, but it also started to plant some seeds that I was able to learn from when it came to culture and process.
Do you think that realizing that people aren't ready to learn things allowed you to recognize that people are ready to learn about cybersecurity?
I think so. I think it also helps that sometimes you need a forest fire to get people to get the bucket brigade out.
That's what
and so there wasn't a big enough crisis for the possible solution we were bringing in.
Right.
So now with cybersecurity, the crisis is here, and in many dimensions, healthcare, telecommunications, travel, banking, it's pretty bad. So that's the other part. The last part of this is you don't start a company just because you want to make money.
Right.
Because frankly, life is bloody short.
Right.
No one's going to put on their stone. Had 72 consecutive quarters of profit. Oh, that's not what you're going to be remembered
Nor will they
for,
give a
right?
fuck.
You know, Steve Jobs is remembered for transforming our relationship with technology, right? So have something bigger in mind, but not that. There's a hilarious video out there, by the way, that makes fun of startups that I kind of really enjoy. I don't know if you guys, the hippie guy is talking about his. Think about, oh my God, you got to watch it.
Sammy Lancaster.
Yeah, he's like, his friend calls him. He's like, hey, you want to go for drinks tomorrow? He's like, how do you monetize that?
Okay, on that note,
Jeff's got to go.
life is a beautiful struggle. This guy gets it. This guy gets it. Shipley, you're a cold hard killer.
Thank you.
I love it.
Appreciate it.
Amazing.
Thank you very much.
Cheers. Thanks.